off the ball. This is News Talk.
Now you're very welcome back. So Everton have pulled a goal back from 2-0 down against Crystal Palace. So it's Palace 2, Everton 1, 75 minutes on the clock. If you're just tuning in, we had Alan Quinlan with us in the last hour. A clean sweep for the Irish provinces in Europe this weekend in the Heineken Champions Cup. Munster and all those young players did the job in Coventry, more than did the job. Bonus point win. And Connacht similarly had a bonus point win at the Sports Ground against Stade Francais, and obviously Leinster bonus point winners against Bath yesterday. Ulster with a fantastic win away in Claremont. So that puts a very nice cap on the weekend for the Irish provinces. We are going to turn to the F1 action because it was quite extraordinary in Abu Dhabi this morning. Max Verstappen, 33 points ahead at one stage in the World Championship, went into today's Abu Dhabi finale locked on level points with Lewis Hamilton. The race itself, I mean, Hamilton took the initiative from second. Verstappen was in pole. Hamilton took the lead. There was a bumping of cars on the first lap. Hamilton managed to get away safely. No action was taken against him for leaving the track. And it looked for all the world like he was going to cruise home. Then with 5 laps to go, Nicholas Latifi crashed his Williams and there was a safety car, and the various machinations transpired so that Verstappen was within striking distance on the final lap, and struck he did, overtaking Lewis Hamilton on the final lap of this extraordinary 2021 season to win the Grand Prix, to win the World Championship. We're going to chat about this in a moment with Leo Nulty from Motorsport.ie. First though, here is man of the moment, Max Verstappen.
It's unbelievable. I mean, throughout the whole race I kept fighting, and then of course that opportunity in the last lap, it's incredible. I'm still having a cramp, but it's insane. It's insane. I mean, I don't know what to say. These guys here of my team, and of course Honda as well, they deserve it. I love them so much, and I really enjoy working with them already since 2016, but this year has been incredible. Insane. I also want to say a big thank you to Checo. I mean, he was driving his heart out as well today. It was great teamwork, and he's an amazing teammate. Well, to my team, I think they know I love them, and I hope we can do this for 10, 15 years together. There's no reason to change ever. I want to stay with them for the rest of my life. I hope they let me, but yeah, it's insane. I'm so happy. And also, you know, Christian, but also Helmut, you know, trusted me to be in the team in 2016. Our goal, of course, was to win this championship, and now we've done that.
So that's Max Verstappen. Here is Lewis Hamilton.
Well, I mean, firstly, a big congratulations to Max and to his team. I think we did an amazing job this year. My team, everyone back at the factory, all the men and women we have and here worked so hard this whole year. It's been the most difficult of seasons, and I'm so proud of them, so grateful to be a part of the journey with them. And yeah, we gave it everything. This last part of the season, we gave it absolutely everything, and we never gave up, and that's the most important thing. I've been feeling good, great in the car this past couple of months, particularly at the end. If I'm honest, you know, we were still in the pandemic, and I just really wish everyone to stay safe and have a good Christmas with all their families, and yeah, we'll see about next year.
Lewis Hamilton denied an 8th World Championship. Mercedes did win the Constructors' Championship, by the way, but ultimately it's Red Bull who were jumping up and down and celebrating. And very happy to say Leo Nulty from Motorsport.ie is with us. Hi, Leo.
Hey, how's it going? What a day.
Yeah, extraordinary. I'm not even sure the day is finished yet. Mercedes seem to be in with the stewards at the moment. They are contesting a decision which was made towards the end of the race. We will come to that in a moment, but let's start at the start. Hamilton, in advance of this race, joked, but I think there was a degree of truth in the humour when he said that at least I can see him for the start of the race, as in Verstappen's in pole. I took that to mean I'm not against letting Verstappen get away a touch here and avoiding some kind of collision early on, which would obviously play into Verstappen's hands. So I just hadn't anticipated Hamilton getting off to the faster start and getting through turn 1 the way he did. Are we putting that down to just a bad Verstappen start, or what happened there?
Yeah, I was the same as you about that comment. I thought it might be twofold. Maybe he was referring to the fact that he'd been put to the back in qualifying before, or had to start further back and had to do all the work to get up there and chase him. But I suppose everybody knew that if they'd had a crash, Verstappen probably would have ended up as world champion, because he has had more wins, even though they would have ended up equal on points. So I'm sure Mercedes were concerned about that. But yeah, I think they're both under a lot of pressure. We saw that the amount of complaining that's been going on the radio from teams and from both the drivers, and just massive pressure. And you couldn't have written a better script, really. And I suppose the worry during the week for most people that I spoke to was that the Mercedes would be stronger in the race, and Hamilton would motor off into the distance, and it would be a big anticlimax. And it did look like that for a while.
Yeah. So good start for Hamilton, poor start for Verstappen, and then Verstappen stays in Hamilton's slipstream on lap 1 and dives for the inside at turn 6-7. Now, as has been the story of the season, Hamilton has to get out of the way. You know, we've seen this, I don't know how many times this season, where Verstappen takes the turn and takes over the track, and Hamilton in the end bails. Now, this time Hamilton bailed, went off track, and this allowed him to stay in the lead. And this was the big talking point, I would suppose, for the first section of the race. Was Hamilton going to be punished for going off track? Now, Red Bull were exasperated. They radioed Michael Massey, the director, to insist that Verstappen had been ahead and he stayed on the track. Therefore, how can he allow Hamilton to go unpunished here? So I'm in here today, so I'm doing various things, and not everyone saw the race. How long did confusion reign over whether Hamilton was going to be punished or not in those initial stages? How much was going on the radio? Can you tell us about what happened around that period of the race, Leo?
Well, I suppose everybody, all that information is there to be seen now in all the communications. But what's happened lately is there aren't really barriers. There are huge runoff areas. They tend to be painted. They enforce track limits as they do in club motorsport these days. And if you go off that, you have to, and gain advantage, you have to give the place back. And that's happened quite a lot. So you tend to get quite a lot of drivers, I won't say whinging, but you get quite a lot of drivers and team on the radio. They've got a direct link to the FIA, which we get to see, and some of it we get to hear. So if you take a dive down the inside of somebody and they can't turn in, they would normally have to stay on the brakes if there was a barrier on the outside, but they can just release the brake, or they can go wide, or they can be driven wide. The idea being that you're not allowed to stand on the power and drive across that area and rejoin the track with a greater advantage, which it did look like that's what happened with Hamilton today. How long did it go on for? It went on for quite a while. Twitter went mad, social media went mad, and the FIA radios went mad. But as the race began to progress, it looked like Hamilton was going to motor off into the distance. It didn't look like...
Yeah, and so we heard presumably what Red Bull were saying to the FIA. Well, and can give us a sense of what those conversations were like?
Well, they were looking for consistency in these decisions, especially last week and all the way through the season. If that happened, it was black and white. You handed the place back, and a lot of people have had to do it. You've had to lift off, which is very difficult for a racing driver, but rules are rules. But for some reason, they didn't insist it on this occasion. Right. And the message that was a little bit unclear. They said stewards have decided not to investigate. Normally, when anything happens in a Grand Prix, a message comes up on our screens and it says incident between car number 1 and car number 2, whatever the numbers are, being investigated by the stewards. And after that, subsequent to that, you get a decision. But they just said this time they didn't want to investigate, or wasn't going to be investigated, which I thought was very odd, because quite obviously Hamilton, one, kept the lead. And if anything, he certainly didn't lose anything by it, And it was a typical Max Verstappen dive, which we absolutely love watching. Yeah, there's half a gap fire down the inside.
So you think? Let's imagine a parallel universe where Hamilton cruised home. Presumably, Christian Horner and Red Bull and Verstappen would be livid about that decision.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And it was your read that this was not in keeping with, say, how the season has generally been ruled in the previous races.
That's exactly what I would say. It's not consistent with that, We had loads of demonstrations of that last week in Saudi Arabia. But no, absolutely, I would have expected something to happen there. I certainly would have expected the stewards to discuss it. Right. But just straight away, I thought it was a little bit odd.
Okay. So then it looks for all the world like this is going to be a dud and a bit of a snooze, and Hamilton's going to cruise home until, with 5 laps to go, Nicholas Latifi crashes his Williams. Now, so I'm reading here off the BBC website, Leo, and what they say of the predicament, I suppose, facing Hamilton Mercedes when the safety car came out here. They say Mercedes couldn't afford to have Hamilton come in and change tyres because they would be surrendering the lead with just 5 laps to go, and Verstappen didn't have to stop because he had fresher tyres from his second stop. So Mercedes were thinking, well, if we go in, Verstappen probably won't go in, and then we've surrendered the lead. As it happened, they didn't go in for those reasons. Verstappen does go in. That gives him a bit of an advantage. And so he's within striking distance of Hamilton. Now, the other thing which is going on here, and I think is still ongoing, I think as things stand, Mercedes have spent about 40 minutes with the stewards, and Toto has gone upstairs with a lawyer. and they've lodged a complaint, Mercedes, about all this. Essentially, Michael Massey, the race director, he had said that the lapped cars who were between Hamilton and Verstappen would not be allowed to unlap themselves, i.e. there'd be traffic between the two. And then Red Bull said, well, hang on a bloody second, no way. And then he changes his mind, Michael Massey, so the unlapped cars get out of the way and clear the way for Verstappen to have a crack at Hamilton. Now, the Mercedes complaint seems to be that Michael Massey only let the lapped cars between those two drivers get out of the way, not the others to retain their original positions, which goes against the rule. We're into the weeds of this stuff here, but that seems to be the big Mercedes contention at the moment. And like I said, as we speak, they're upstairs with, I'm sure, an angry barrister screaming at the FIA. So did all this jump out to you as thoroughly unorthodox and very unusual, or what's your analysis of all this, Leo?
Well, you know, when it happened, I was shouting with a couple of mates. I was actually at the Irish Rallycross Championship commentating at Mondello, but we had rigged up a TV in the commentary box, so I had one eye on what I was supposed to be doing, and we were watching this as well, and we were screaming at the telly like everybody else was, because we wanted a wheel-to-wheel race. We wanted Max Verstappen to race Lewis Hamilton, and as you referred to earlier, it looked like Lewis was going to disappear off into the distance. Damn squib, anticlimax, not the way to do it. And we thought we might get a chance. Now, of course, with the new tyres that you spoke, he was going to be way quicker. Hamilton wouldn't have had a chance of holding him back. But yeah, that's exactly what happened. The safety car will generally seek out the leader and let it wave other cars by. And then on some occasions, they're supposed to let the lapped cars go. So they said initially that they weren't going to. Then they changed their mind and they said the lapped cars could go by. Almost immediately, and that's crucial, the lights went off on the safety car, the flashing lights in the safety car, same as club motor racing. When the lights go off in the safety car, that means we're going back racing, lads. It means the safety car is pulling in at the end of this lap. There was only time for the cars that were between Hamilton and Verstappen to get by and to go. That's all we needed to have our race, you know, but there wasn't time for the rest of them to go by. So whether that'll stand up or what angle Mercedes are taking, as you said, they're probably still in there, so who knows. But that's one of the things. I think initially they were giving out because Verstappen was mad to get racing and he went up beside Lewis Hamilton a few times, and apparently they were complaining about that as well. But I don't know. I think it was, I mean, you couldn't write a better script. You couldn't write a better finish. For Max Verstappen, you couldn't anyway. Because
Rebecca Clancy of the Sunday Times is reporting as we speak. And we're talking, you and I, here at 6:15 for those watching on YouTube or podcasting thereafter. There might be more dramatic news on the way. So 3 hours ago, Beck Clancy of the Sunday Times said, I'm not entirely convinced this is over. Not allowing all cars, because again, it was just the cars between the two that they allowed to unlap. So she tweeted, not allowing all cars to unlap, only those between Verstappen and Hamilton is unheard of. I wouldn't be surprised to see Mercedes protest. And then an hour after that, Mercedes have lodged a protest. And where we are an hour ago is Red Bull have been summoned to the stewards. Christian Horner, who, by the way, she says is wearing a Verstappen champion t-shirt, Adrian Newey and Jonathan Wheatley have just headed up. That was an hour ago. And where we are now, 40 minutes after that, 40 minutes with the stewards and they're out. Now we wait. And that was a picture of Christian Horner and his crew leaving the stewards. And then 15 minutes after that, Mercedes have been up with the stewards and they've brought a barrister with them. And now what she's just tweeted in the last half hour is Christian Horner and Red Bull going back to the stewards. So that was her last tweet about 43 minutes ago. Horner and Red Bull going back to the stewards. Now they could be going back to the stewards to be told, celebrate away, congratulations, or World War III could be about to break out here. How contentious is that issue? This feels like Mercedes would be getting something done here on a real technicality. This is more about the technicality being broken as opposed to the spirit of the rule being broken. Or is this a very legitimate claim, do you think, Leo?
I think there's been a lot of complaints all year. There's been a lot of protests lodged all year. There's been a lot of direct radio to the FIA. I'm sure Mercedes themselves are putting quite a lot of money into that team, and somebody's got to go back and explain why they didn't win their championship when they looked like they were going to, and they were the favourites to do so. So they're obviously going to fight however they can. You know, they're going to win, I'm sure, at any cost. If there's a chance of winning in the stewards room, they're not going to ignore it. You know, their job is to win. I'd be very surprised if it changed around. But maybe, you know, Christian Horner's t-shirt could be in the bin tomorrow morning. But I think that's pretty unlikely.
Do you? Okay. So they'll jump up and down and they'll be angry, but ultimately the final decision which was made by Massey at the time will stand.
Well, I mean, that's the way I would think, but there's precedent to it. You know, I mean, Michael Schumacher was removed from second place in the World Championship on one occasion for dirty last one. I can't imagine they would come down that hard on the drivers when it wasn't really anything to do with them. Also, even if it was the wrong decision to let those cars past had they let the other cars pass, it would have had no effect on the battle between Lewis and Max Verstappen. Those cars, once those cars were gone, they were going to battle anyway.
That's the thing. This would feel like technicality as opposed to something deeply unfair happening to Hamilton. Look, I guess the whole thing is extraordinary as well. I mean, again, we mentioned parallel worlds earlier on. If that crash doesn't happen with 5 laps to go, Hamilton cruises home easy as you like. I mean, there is a degree of luck in this world, isn't there?
There is a degree of luck. I'm sure there'll be all sorts of conspiracy theories that someone gave Latifi a few million to drive into the wall, which couldn't have been the case. But I mean, that happened many, many years ago. The Renault team got into massive trouble because they did put one car in the wall in order to cause a red flag or safety car to help their other driver, and they got massive fine.
Right.
We do that sort of stuff now because everyone's got access to data. But it was a stroke of luck. I think it made everyone sit up. We were kind of, I wouldn't say turning it off. I'd never turn off a Grand Prix, but I understand why some people would say, historically they mightn't have been the most exciting Grand Prix when you get periods of dominance with Schumacher, with Vettel, I suppose with Hamilton at certain stages in his career. But all of a sudden it was time to plump up your pillows and sit up. Hang on a minute, we've got a race here with 1 lap to go. The Netflix series has done so much for Formula One and it's made it so much more exciting, but they're not going to have to do too much this season with the coverage they have to make it even more exciting and hopefully get more fans involved and maybe even more manufacturers involved.
No, if anything, Drive to Survive is going to struggle to surpass expectations, I think, on this occasion, because how do you beat the real life drama? So do you pretty much regard this as good a season as there has ever been in the history of Formula One, or as long as you've been watching anyway?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like periods of long domination. Who does? It's like the law in marketing. There's a law of diminishing returns, isn't there? That the same thing keeps happening. Your value goes down. It's the same with sport. I mean, Hamilton is brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. He always has been ever since he came in as a young kid. And he would have deserved it had he won the title. But 8 titles and complete domination. So to see somebody come up and somebody young and raw and wild and taking him on is exactly what you want to see. It's exactly what you need to see. He was that kid. I mean, in his first season, he went around the outside of Alonso. His highly experienced teammate Hamilton did when he came in first. So the 2007? Sorry, he was incredibly raw and brave, and now Verstappen is like that. That's just how sport goes and how life goes. So it's great to see it. But I was personally a fan of Verstappen just purely because of the excitement he brings. So yes, he is a bit raw, and he's probably on the edge and closest to the rules than anybody else. But in the spirit of drivers like Gilles Villeneuve, historically, people like that are good to watch. They're really exciting to watch. Anytime there was a gap, as we saw today and we saw last week in Saudi Arabia, he just fires it down the inside. It's more reminiscent of Formula 4 at 1600 or Formula V at Mondello Park than it is a Formula 1. Great to see. We want proper wheel-to-wheel racing.
Who'd be a Formula 1 race director? Leo, brilliant stuff. Thanks so much. We'll see if this mightn't be over yet. We'll see how it all plays out over the next couple of hours. But Leo Nulty from Motorsport.ie. Thanks, Leo. Appreciate that.
Thanks very much. Talk to you soon.
Cheers. Latest in the Premier League, by the way, into injury time. Palace 2, Everton 1.
Off the ball on News Talk.
You're pretty smart, right? Clever, intelligent. You make smart choices. So what car are you sitting in right now? If it's a Skoda, well, you're one of the smartest drivers on the road. And if it's not, we can fix that with one smart decision. Choose a new Skoda from our range right now and get an excellent finance offer. You can even apply online.